It's the penultimate round of the 2015 Blancpain Sprint Series. We're here in Misano, and it's going to be a very entertaining weekend of racing. You can see we've already got some GT4 cars out there at the moment, just finishing their qualifying session, and once they're done, we're going to be having the qualifying session for the Blancpain Sprint Series. It should be a very entertaining, a lovely day here now, 22.6 degrees the air temperature, track temperature up at 32 degrees, and this is the first visit ever for the Blancpain Sprint Series to this Misano track, John.
Yes, Misano Adriatico, better known as the World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, named after the great Italian motorcyclist. Tragically, we lost him some 3 years or so ago, but this is the circuit that bears his name, and there's an overview of the very busy paddock on a 4 kilometre. There's two actual circuits. One's 4.2 kilometres, that's the circuit we're going to use. The slightly shorter 4.048, I think that may be the circuit that is probably used for MotoGP when they visit here for another version of the Italian Grand Prix. I think the other circuit is Mugello. So great to be here. First time I've been here. Lovely venue, lovely circuit. Mozzies are a bit of a pain. Well, they will be later in the evening, but other than that, everything's really cracking.
Absolutely. And this is how the championship stands at the moment. Robin Frains and Laurens van Thor are at the top, 26 points clear of Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch. But of course, there is a point to play for in this qualifying session, a point that could be vital come the end of the year. Then we've got Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies after their strong run in Algarve, where they started on pole position. They're down in 8th place in the championship. Albert von Turnen Taxis up into 10th place now, and you've got Nick Katzberg in there as well. Craig Dolby and Sean Walkinshaw had a reasonable weekend last time out in the Algarve, but also a very impressive time at the Nürburgring in the Blancpain Endurance Series. So they come here brimming with confidence, I think, after their successful weekend. And you can see Peter Cox has picked up 2 points in the championship so far. There's two new entries this weekend, the 19 car and the 63. That's Mirko Bortolotti just walking away from the car at the moment, and he's got Kujala, his teammate, in there, who's going to be taking the start. We may have a slight delay to the start of this qualifying session whilst they finish the previous qualifying session that had a red flag a couple of moments ago, but great to have the Grasser Racing team here in the Sprint Series.
Very much so, and two cars that really, I think, are going to send shivers down the rest of the paddock, because this Lamborghini Huracan, a car that is now an in-house developed car for the Lamborghini company, and we've seen certainly in Blancpain Endurance just how competitive this car is in the longer branch of the Blancpain series. Now, for the Sprint Series, I would expect to see these cars very much to the fore. Again, we're not a million miles away from where Lamborghinis are manufactured, and probably not even less distance to where Ferraris are manufactured. And fortunately, we've still got one car, the Rinaldi Racing, with Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler. Just checking through out of curiosity, because both practice sessions on Friday were run in changeable conditions. It did sort of dryish a bit towards the end, but the Ferrari was actually the fastest of everybody through the speed traps, and consistently so. So another lime green car, yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, we've got 3 of them now. So here's a look at the Misano circuit. As John was saying, it's a great circuit to have. It was built in the early 70s, and it's quite large actually. You look at the it's 4.2 kilometers long, and it looks a bit tight and twisty when you look at it, but when you get here, it's actually quite a big place. So I think there's going to be some quick corners out there.
Yeah, you've got a combination of slowish corners after turn 1, turn 2, and then 5 and 6. Then between 6 and 8 there's a reasonably good straight, and then the main section of the circuit is the exit of 10 through 2 really quick curves at 11 and 12. 13 probably won't be flat out, because you're going to be on the brakes pretty much immediately. That's the 3rd sector of the circuit we're looking at, down into turn 14, a hairpin bend. Then again, it's just the acceleration back up to turn 16, final turn. Now, interesting that from my memory, I mean, I've never been here, but from my memory, the racetrack used to be run counterclockwise. It's now run clockwise, and I'm trying to think what was the reason for that, because certainly watching, I think, Formula 2 when it raced here way back in the 80s, it was almost certainly start into turn 1 was a tight right-hand corner, and whether it was because it was decided that turn 1 was one of those corners that always caused a problem, collision, whatever, that the circuit has now been returned to its original concept, which is running clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise, but that makes sense.
It certainly does. So the qualifying session is underway. The green flags have come out, so the session did start on time, which is excellent news. There is the 84 HTP Bentley, Maximilian Buch and Vincent Abril, and it is Maxi Buch who's going to be at the wheel first of all then. So it'll be Abril going out in the quicker of the two sessions. They have two 15-minute sessions, Q1 and Q2. First driver goes out in Q1, then the second driver goes out in Q2, and then the top 10 go through to the shootout for pole position.
Just quick observation here. All the curbing is very, very flat, which is primarily to accommodate the MotoGP bikes when they are competing in their round of the World Championship. Consequently, my old chestnut, track limits, we're going to see lots of car using lots of curb both on the entry and exit of all the 16 curves around the 4.2 kilometer circuit.
So there is the 84 car with Maximilian Buch at the wheel. There's the 173 always evolving motorsport machine, and it's Sean Walkinshaw who is sat in there at the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, at the Nürburgring, the 3-hour race 2 weekends ago, Craig Dolby led his stint, did a brilliant job, unchallenged, controlled, handed over to Sean Walkinshaw. The pit stop wasn't quite as quick as some of those around it, but nonetheless Sean did another very strong job. Sadly, the third stint didn't go quite as well. I think they finished 8th up overall, but clearly the always evolving motorsport team that are now managing that car with more input from Japan is beginning to tell. And again, another car that's really quick down the straights.
Absolutely. There's Alexei Vasiliev in the GT Russian car pulling out of the pit lane, and he's in a battle with that man there, Alexei Karachev, for the Pro-Am title. Karachev will most likely wrap it up this weekend as long as nothing goes too amiss for that GT Russian car. As here comes Max van Splunteren then down to the right-hander as he comes through 14, and he's now making his way out towards the back end of the circuit, and you can see he's done his first sector split already. And my apologies, that was 4 and 5 he's at now. Now he's coming down towards the hairpin of turn 8. Gets on the brakes. It's quite a wide hairpin, quite an open hairpin, not a slow, tight corner.
Yeah, I mean, the whole layout of the circuit fundamentally has been very much adapted to suit motorcycle racing. Oh, and he runs a little bit off the racetrack, and that's unexpected down at turn 10. He's now coming on to, from turn 10 all the way down to 13, the quickest part of the track. That's where we're seeing even the Bentley was in the sort of the low 220 kilometer per hour sector. So unfortunately that little driving error down at turn 10 has cost him a lap. As we go back to Maximilian Buch in the 84 Bentley, and the HRT team very pleased indeed. I was having breakfast this morning with management from the HRT team, and just for a 23-year-old driver, he's got a very old head on his head.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I don't
anyway,
think so.
He's got an old head on his shoulders, and it shows in the performances we've seen with Max Buch. Not just this year, but in previous seasons.
So the time's already coming down. Max van Splunteren doing a 1 minute 39.1, despite his little off-track excursion. As you see, Maximilian Buch now, who's going to better that by at least a couple of seconds, because that's the amount of time he's gained in the middle sector. Buch himself didn't have the best run through turns 9 and 10 as he comes out of the final corner now and comes towards the line. And where's this going to put in? Maximilian Buch in the Bentley, second place men in the championship, he and Vincent Abril, and it is a 136.425 then.
Yeah, I mean, that's more in the zone that we would have thought would have been a benchmark time as we go back to the Lamborghini. And I mean, it's going to be fun to watch Mirko Bertolotti.
It's Kujala at the wheel.
And Kujala has been dominating the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. And again, I mean, this is, I'm going to go nuts all weekend when I see this. Is going to drive me literally out of the booth if we keep seeing drivers going so far wide. But you give a racetrack a lot of runoff and it's going to get used.
There's Robin Freitz coming towards the final corner now. Kujala setting the quickest time of anyone, a 1 minute 35.151. What is Robin Freitz going to manage? He goes third quickest at 35.3, and there's a stern-looking Laurens van Dort.
Yeah, he knows he's on camera. But anyway, Robin Freitz was quickest yesterday in that first free practice session. But again, the track conditions were pretty appalling. a full, well, 11 seconds in fact slower than currently is now, and I would assume as Kujula in fact has gone quickest in the Lamborghini by just 0.62 thousandths of a second. And almost every car by the lap is going to see improvement over the previous best, so it's going to be a lot of times changing in the top 10, if not through the entire field.
James Nash has just done the fastest first sector of anyone there in the number 4 WRT Audi. Exactly the same first sector as Robin Freitz in the number 1 WRT Audi. They both did a 24.847 in the first sector. So I think for the first time I've ever seen it, we've got 2 purples in sector 1 because they've set an identical time. So there's a little bit of fun for you. But there through turn 15 comes James Nash, and then through the final corner now. It was a difficult weekend for that number 4 car in Algarve. They had all sorts of mechanical problems, and then Nash came in a lap too soon, but now he's put it to the top. 1 minute 34.871.
Yeah, and Maximilian Buch had gone quicker on his last flying lap, but he's now been eclipsed by just over a tenth of a second by the British driver in the number 4 Audi. And literally, I mean, you can see just how much of the racetrack we are seeing abused as 173. And this is Sean Walkinshaw behind the wheel of that Nissan, and a car that has improved along with always evolving motorsport. The 2 improvements coming hand in hand, and a lot just in terms of preparation and performance, but also the lift and confidence that you get when you're getting better performances from your car, from your team.
And that's 6th place then for Sean Walkinshaw in that 173 Nissan, the always evolving motorsport entry. And Stefan Otel is looking quick. He's just gone purple in the first sector. There, meanwhile, is Alexei Karachev, who's currently 12th quickest overall, and the quickest of the Pro-Am cars at the moment. So Karachev coming towards the final corner, and his aim every weekend is to kind of be challenging the top 10 and getting into the top 10 as he begins his journey in motorsport, and he's 12th at the moment.
Yeah, just seeing Max Buch come across the line and goes quickest. 134.4 again, well, it's just nearly half a second now on Robin Freins in the number 1 Audi. So track is being kind to the tyres. Remember, this is a relatively green circuit, a lot of rain here on Thursday, probably a little bit less Friday, but still pretty bad conditions throughout both practice sessions. Some teams did try to run on slicks at the end of the second session, but that slick time was about 5 seconds off of wet weather time, so really nothing to be gained.
So that got very close into turn 1, didn't it? As the 2 Audis duelled together. And there is James Nash. Has he picked up damage? And we think he's had a spin out there. So
no wonder, because both Audis going into turn 1, that wasn't going to happen.
It was Mayer Melnoff as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nicky, I mean, sometimes he has a rush of blood. And it never looked on to make a move down the inside. Let's look again and see what's happening. Well, James Nash didn't anticipate that. I mean, Nicky, what were you thinking? I could almost make a song. Nicky, what were you thinking?
It's not. Keep working on it. We'll see.
Better than anything Lewis has done.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So that's not good news for James Nash then, and Nicky Mayer Melnoff. And it looks as though Nash's Audi has come to a halt at the moment. I'd be surprised if that's caused any sort of terminal damage, because it was just a sort of hit on the side, wasn't it?
It depends whether it's damaged something, you know, there's nothing external that we can see. It was a fairly good old biff on the right front, but whatever has...
red flag.
Yeah, it was just suddenly... There's the Ferrari 333, fastest in the middle sector.
But the red flag's out.
Red flag is out indeed, but he's not. He doesn't see the red flag.
Yeah.
He might now. He's going to finish his lap. He's going to finish the lap with the red flag. Wonderful.
So
and go second quickest in the process. Well, that means he might have to get up to see the race director even more quickly than he's just done his second fastest lap on.
Exactly, and I think that second fastest lap might not happen. And there is Norbert Siedler.
Yeah, no, but I think you got it. Marco maybe didn't see the flag. Understandable, you know, when you're all focused and concentrating on getting that time. So that lap will be deleted. I mean, that's probably the least of your worries, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So red flag out thanks to the stoppage of James Nash. And it's unusual to see shunts in qualifyings, but there's Frank Stippler. And he's James Nash's teammate in that number 4 WRT Audi, and he looks a bit frustrated, as he might well imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it looked sort of an unnecessary attempt by Nicky Mayer Melnoff to pass down into turn 1. It's a relatively tight right-hand corner, But is there, you see there, the lock-up, he was well and truly locked up. He just had too much speed and couldn't go anywhere. He was trying not to make contact, but it was inevitable with the Audi taking its normal line. That's the number 4 Audi. And this the number 6 car, the Phoenix Racing car. There ought to be a bit of heavy damage on that left front. But these Audis are built well. Yes. They take a lot of wax.
They certainly are. And so there's the standings at the moment. You can see the 333 lap time has been deleted, so it's Bentley quickest, and then Audi, and Marcus Zingerlog asking how the steering is, and he's just being relayed the information by Nicky Mermanov as to what exactly happened out there.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously team manager of Car 6 is to report to race director immediately. No surprise there. I wouldn't be surprised if the manager of car number 333 would also get a similar request, because it is a serious offence not to respond instantly to a red flag being shown. And not only was it second quickest lap, well, it's now dropped down, it's been deleted, but it was the way he actually exited 16. He was right on it. Let's look again and see. Now, what was Nicky Mermanov thinking he was going to be able to do? I mean, you can't see the brake marks, but they are on the track from the left front in particular. And I mean, that was as good a snooker ball, if you like. I mean, a big hit. That was a heavy hit for the number 4. It may have dislodged something within the electronics of the car rather than any serious mechanical effect. But Frank Stippler not overly amused by that. Let's give Nicky Mermanov the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, let's.
I'm not going to elaborate.
Yeah, I thought you were going.
No, I'm not going to elaborate.
Why.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt until we know otherwise. Because he might have had a bad hair day or something, and we don't know. He might have got up in the morning on the wrong side of the bed, and he didn't get his favourite marmalade and all that kind of thing.
Did that used to affect you, getting the right marmalade in the morning?
We didn't have marmalade. Oh. When you were under the Willy Dungle stricture, it was very, very Teutonic. Breakfast I'm talking about.
Okay. So there is James Nash. He's returned to the pits. And here he is talking to Frank Stippler. Didn't quite catch what they were saying to each other, but the session has now restarted with 5.5 minutes to go. So it'll be the quickest times from both Q1 and Q2 that will go through to the final pole position shootout. With 5.5 minutes left on the clock, everyone's going to want to get back out there and try and set a quick time. At the moment, Maxi Book's lap time is 3.5 tenths of a second quicker than anyone else. So things looking pretty good for the young German at the moment.
Well, things are looking pretty good for the number 4 Audi, James Nash. He's currently third quickest, just under half a second behind Max Book, but more importantly, a tenth of a second slower than the number 1 Audi, the car that is the sort of de facto go-to car if you want a performance. So that was a good run for James Nash, and he will be very upset indeed, because I doubt that car will be. Well, there is the car. In fact, we're just talking about the number 4 Audi. It could well be back out there. It doesn't look as if there's any sufficient or damage to either the steering or the suspension of the car.
Well, I think it's about to be pushed back in the garage, though, isn't it? Because
the glasses are steaming up. I can't quite see.
Well, they
got the dollies
they're
on
putting
there.
the dollies underneath, are they? But. Oh no, maybe not. No, they're just doing some work on it then, by the looks of things. So that's good news. Hopefully, we'll see that number 4 WRT Audi
I think what they're doing is running a piece of string around it just to make sure all the wheel angles and the steering, the toe on the steering is where it should be. I mean, it was more a slap on the right front of that car rather than the nose digging into it. So it was more like I say the snooker ball effect.
Those are the 2 ISR cars passing each other, and the Fjordbach brothers have a new paint scheme this weekend. It's this white and blue number, which makes them a little bit easier to separate. So it's the 75 car that's coming through the final corner now, and that has got Philippe Salaquada at the wheel. Salaquada's teammate is Marco Bononomi, the home hero really in Misano. His face is plastered over all the promotional posters, and Salaquada will be hoping that he can have a good weekend, because it hasn't been the best of seasons for that pairing. Their best result so far this season is still from Nogaro, the opening race of the season, where they finished in 7th place after finishing 6th in the qualifying race. Since then, they haven't actually scored any points since Zolder, so
I think really what that says to me is just how competitive sprint racing is, because they're in a car which is almost the identical car to the WRT Audi team or the Phoenix Racing team, and it is so intense amongst all the Audis, let alone amongst the other brands. So if you haven't quite got that sweet spot in the car setup, then that's where the time usually ends up disappearing to.
So running out wide and onto the back stretch, and then you've got the 333 Ferrari behind of Marco Seefried, who will try and replicate his time that got deleted a couple of moments ago into the quick turn 11, and then slowing down again into 13.
Well, there you can see the little short circuit cut, the back end of the Audi just beginning to get a little bit loose under braking. You're braking and turning at the same time is never the ideal, but that's the nature of that particular part of the racetrack. Into turn 14, then this final turn 16, which is more about just getting it lined up, and well, you can see how much runoff there is on the outside, and it's going to get used. But the third of the three cars, the Ferrari, looking to see whether it can improve.
I think that was their outlap, wasn't it?
That must have been their outlap.
Oh no, he's gone second quickest.
Oh, well, there we are.
1 minute 34.
I thought it looked a quick lap.
Yeah.
When I was saying that was a quick, I could tell by the way the car came out, it was a good lap, and that car is a quick car.
Yeah.
Bear in mind it's got good top line speed, which, okay, it albeit it's only 2 to 3 kilometers per hour advantage over the bulk of the field. Nevertheless, it's worth having it.
Absolutely. So here's Albert von Turner Taxis, who is slowest of anyone at the moment, but I don't think he's managed to put a proper lap together yet.
With Nicky Katzberg behind the wheel, that car was a quick car yesterday. Yeah. And again, it's got good straight line speed. And there's about 4, the Lamborghini, this one, Gallardo, the Bentley, one of the Mercedes, and the Ferrari. Those 4 cars, and the Nissan, 5 cars, are all in excess of 220 kilometers per hour on the fastest part of the circuit. That's coming into turn 13.
The 333 Ferrari has been reminded to respect track limits at turn number 6. But no deletion of times as of yet. Maximilian Buch, meanwhile, has just gone purple in the first sector, though. A shake of the head from Hans Reiter after he sees Albert only get up to 16th quickest. There is the 333 car that's on a very slow lap at the moment. Middle sector, a second down on what they've managed before, but we go on board as we come through the sort of hairpin right at 14 and then start to swing back through this sequence of left-handers, and he's coming into the pits. Or yes, he is. So it's Maximilian Buch at the moment who's the man out there, but he's a tenth of a second down in the middle sector. So this could go either way for Maximilian Buch. He could improve on his time, or he could not as he comes towards turn 14.
Yeah, I think the key for anybody at this part of the lap is to keep it clean, neat and tidy and not waste it. You've done all the good work in the first couple of sectors. Now you're coming through turn 15 and that short little run to 16, get it slowed down, pointed in, but get on the throttle early and drive the car out of turn 16 and up and across the start-finish line. 134.4 was his best. He's improved by just under a tenth to a 34.3.
So Vincent Abril and the mechanics are seemingly satisfied with that, because they weren't really on the pace yesterday in terms of in the free practice sessions.
Well, again, as I mentioned, having had the benefit of a little bit of breakfast this morning with the team manager and asking what was happening, who was doing what, and the switch over time between wet weather tyres and slicks, and they did that test in the second session, the evening session, and they said, look, we were 5 seconds off. So the other problem that they were illustrating was that during the night time, and the first race will be this evening, it is a nighttime race, Saturday evening, the way the floodlights are shining onto the racetrack, the drivers were finding it difficult to pick up on a drying track where not the wet bits but the damp bits, so that if they suddenly came down to a corner and they thought that the track looked dry, it could still actually be sufficiently damp on a set of slicks to really catch them out.
So there is Alexei Kadachev then, still down in 13th position at the moment. He's just moved up a place actually on that last lap, and he's done a personal best in the first sector here, but now he's coming into the pits because he hasn't had the greatest of middle sectors. So the checker flag is out, and that completes the session. So a 34.321 was the quickest time of that session, set by Maximilian Buch, and that'll be the time that they'll be trying to beat in Q2. But it's all about being in that pole position shootout that is going to be vital and that's where you want to be starting this race, of course, from pole position, though it's not a circuit without overtaking opportunities by the looks of things. There's a lot of width and a lot of tight corners.
I think we had an illustration of going into turn one not being the most easier places, but of course, I mean, that was sort of such an unusual occurrence. But there are opportunities. I mean, down into 4, it's not easy, but it's available. Into turn 9, 10, again, you could squeeze by possibly into turn 8, and then I would say the final chance is going to be into turn 14. But you know, you've got to be alongside. It's not one of these things where you can take a big lunge from behind and hope that you're going to sneak through. You've got to really have done all the hard yards to get alongside.
Here's a look at the results after the first segment of qualifying then. The Bentley is quickest of all. Maximilian Buch ahead of Vincent Abril. Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler second quickest. Robin Freins third quickest at the moment. Then Stefan Ortelli. Then you got the number 4 car of James Nash. A good lap from Nash. Hopefully they'll be out again in the second segment with Frank Stippler at the wheel. Then 6th place for the Nissan. Sean Walkinshaw there ahead of Philippe Salaquada. Then you've got Patrick Kujala making his Blancpain Sprint Series debut. 8th quickest in the Lamborghini Huracan. Caca Bueno down in 11th position. Completing the top 12 is Enzo Eade in that car that was on pole position last time out, and now Christopher Mies will be getting behind the wheel. Then Alexei Karachev, 13th quickest in that session. The 2 Lamborghinis, a Gallardo and a Huracan, in 16th and 17th positions as Alberto Di Falco makes his Blancpain Sprint Series debut as well. In that car he's sharing with Jerome Mull. And then 18th and slowest, Alexei Vasiliev at the end of that first session. So there's Laurens Vanthoor getting ready to take over the car and try and get that car through into the top 10 and therefore through to the pole position shootout. That's got to be the aim for him. They haven't had a pole position since Zolder, so it's been quite a while. When was Zolder? May? June was it?
Yeah.
So a long time without a pole position for them. And there's Maximilian Buch, who hasn't had a pole position all season for the Bentley team. Audi feeling stronger coming into this weekend. They felt this track would suit them more than Algarve would, but at the moment it's Bentley and Ferrari in front of them.
I mean, the differences are relatively small. I mean, behind Maximilian Buch, the gap between second, third, and fourth is within a few tenths of each other, and Laurens Vanthoor going to get in to the number 1 Audi now, and you would expect, just simply based on experience and previous history, that Laurens Vanthoor is going to do a pretty impressive stint, this 10-minute stint, and then ultimately the top 10 will go into the final 15 minutes. So, but it's interesting that the 2 of the cars that are quick in a straight line, the Bentley being one of them, the Ferrari being another, are the 2 quickest cars. The Audis are not amongst the quickest in a straight line, but they do favour the nature of the circuit, where there are more of the twisty bits rather than, I mean, even the Algarve is still a lot of downforce, aero-based performance, but that long straight out of turn 15 all the way down into turn 1, I think we saw, if anybody watched or remembers, that they were just being outgunned by the Bentley primarily.
So there is Albert von Turnen Taxis, who's got out of his Reiter Lamborghini, and it'll be Nick Katzberg taking over. I think we're also going to see the pace of the Lamborghinis in this next session, both the Gallardo and the Huracans, because you've got Mirko Bortolotti, who's going to be piloting one of them, who's a very quick racer, Formula 2 champion back in 2011, and he has raced here with the Grasser team in the Italian GT Championship. They've been doing Blancpain and the Italian GT Championship this season, and as a result they already have some experience here. Some of these guys came for the pre-season Sprint Series test, which was held here at Misano, but not everyone. So
but also it's very much at the beginning of the season, and track temperature, ambient temperature, everything was at a different scale. But also these cars within the regulations do evolve, so what you would have been driving here in March or whenever the test was will feel entirely different when you come back now at the beginning of October.
There's Godfrey Grasser, the man in charge of the Grasser racing team. Keen pilot as well in his spare time. Always pictures on Facebook of him
gliding, or...
Well, he tends to be upside down, so I imagine he's flying properly, because he lives in lives in Zeltweg and uses the airfield there, which is where the Red Bull Ring is located now. No, sorry, he lives in Nittelfeld, which is just next door to Zeltweg. But anyway, he uses Zeltweg airfield. I've digressed here. There's Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried, and it's Siedler at the wheel. And my German isn't good enough to know what they're talking about. How helpful is it when a co-driver leans in and says, and gives you some advice? Is it helpful, or is it? I know what I'm doing.
Well, because you're in a shared partnership, it's not all about a single driver, a single car. So the drivers were in these cars just 14, 15 hours ago, running up to 10 o'clock or 10:30 Friday evening. Well, 8:30 anyway. So those are damp or wet conditions, wet going to damp to partially dry. So the car will be totally different, and all you're getting is the information from Norbert Siedler to say that the car feels fine. Just give the brakes a dab, or the kind of little things that will enable you when you go out of the pits, which you'll very quickly realise, because that information will be immediate. As soon as you leave the pit lane, you'll know whether the car is a good one or a bad one. Yeah. But literally, it's as clear as that.
So there's the 71 car of Marco Assmann out. They had their best result of the season last time out in Algarve, so they'll be hoping to continue that run. Marco Assmann and Alexei Vasiliev, the two drivers in that 71 GT Russian racing team. So it's the top 9 that will qualify for Q3. I think I said top 10 earlier, but it's half of the grid qualify for the final pole position shootout. So when there's 20 cars, you have 10. Last time out we only had 8, but this time it'll be 9 cars that will go through to the final pole shootout.
It'll be interesting to keep an eye on Christopher Mies, who's sharing the number 2 car, Enzoid. Christopher Mies was particularly impressive in Portimao, which is a circuit he kind of has been sort of labelled as a specialist. So I want to see whether that specialty extends beyond Portimao and will carry forward here at Misano.
So here is the 333 Ferrari, and right up behind is Vincent Abril. And there's the 63 car, which is in the hands now of Mirko Bortolotti, the Italian who's from near Trentino. He's from, and so not a million miles away from here. Probably the closest thing to a home race other than Monza. As he comes out of the final corner, we go on board with the 63 car, and that shows you the Huracan's styling, doesn't it? As it comes into turn 1, use all the curve and then swing it over to the left. It's a kind of elongated chicane, really.
It is. It's a bit quicker than a chicane, but certainly a very, very interesting camera angle, and giving you pretty much almost that sort of the driver's perspective of where the nose of the car is. I wonder whereabouts in the car this is.
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
Well, should we not get our viewers?
Yeah, okay, tweet us if you can figure out where this camera is. Use the hashtag Blancpain GT, and I don't know. We'll give you a prize. I don't know what the prize will be, but yeah, if you're joining us, use the hashtag Blancpain GT, and yeah, you'll get a prize.
Yeah, your prize will be a guest on Friday's running here this weekend.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, we're still on board with Mirko Bortolotti. 25-0 in the first sector as he makes his way up towards... Now, let's listen to this. That's flat.
Oh, it's flat as a kipper. Through 11, flat through 12. Then there's a bit more of a stretch into 13 because it's tightening up, and then you're almost immediately onto the top of 14. And it's here that you need to get the car really back in, make a good, clean, tight apex. Be clean in these final 3 corners, because you could so easily in this final sector of a time undo all the good work that you might have done on the first 2 sectors. Running very wide, comes across start-finish line and goes second quickest on the 1:35.005. Best lap currently for Christopher Mies in the number 2 Audi, 34.7. So not a million miles away from the 34.2. Which was, I think, the
34.3.
Yeah, was the quick. So we're already in that zone. And again, track is picking up time because there's more rubber going down on what would have been a pretty green track when these cars were not, albeit there's been other events taking place here, but they're using different rubber, and everything will be different. Craig Dolby!
Craig Dolby goes quickest of anyone in the Nissan. 1 minute 34.5. Still a couple of tenths off the quickest time from Q1, but nevertheless, that's promising stuff. We also saw in the pits there the number 4 WRT Audi looked like that was getting ready to leave with Frank Stippler. No, it has been out and in actually, so Stippler's been out, done an installation lap and come back into the pits.
He's probably just done that to check the car, because after that moment at turn 1, they may feel that it doesn't quite respond as it ought to do. So the number 2 Audi, Christopher Mies again. That's Abril, Vincent Abril's gone quickest. Now Christopher Mies has gone quickest. So literally car by car, the times are picking up. Nicky Katzberg, watch Nicky Katzberg, always a star behind the wheel of a Ryder Lamborghini.
Here he comes across the line then. We've already gone quicker than Q1, so this is the important times now. It's third quickest for Nick Katzberg. So it's Christopher Mies in the Audi, Vincent Abril in the Bentley. Oh no, Mirko Bortolotti just jumps up to second place, 1,000th of a second slower than Christopher Mies. We've got a purple middle sector from Craig Dolby, who we were just on board with briefly. Vincent Abril's gone purple in sector 1. This is more like it, isn't it? Here comes Dolby then, out of the final corner. Are we going to see another improvement from the Nissan? Across the line, yes we are. 1 minute 33.899. 3.5 tenths of a second quicker than anyone else. Great lap from Dolby.
Well, great performance indeed, because they've seen this Nissan literally picking up performance over the previous 2 events, and that's the kind of performance we know that Craig Dolby is capable of delivering. And again, a real surge of confidence coming to the always evolving motorsport team, Sean Walkinshaw and Craig Dolby.
But this car is already 4 tenths of a second up on that time from Craig Dolby, but he's almost maybe got held up by the Ferrari, couldn't quite tell. I
think he would have been held up. It's not so much what happened, it was just that little sequence of corners just suddenly lost the momentum that he was carrying. So Vincent Abril running strongly, currently 4th quickest on a 34.2, and this should see him into the 33s if he hasn't been. That's about 34.023. He lost, I would say, maybe a tenth to a couple of tenths.
Yeah, absolutely. So purple in the middle sector here for this man Marcus Finkelhock, who's looking very quick. We are having some lap times deleted, so Christopher Mies, Mirko Bortolotti and Nicky Katzberg have all had their lap times cancelled for track limits at turn 3. Here's though Marcus Winkelhock through the final corner. He may be succumbing to track limits later on, but let's see what the time is initially as he comes across the line. Second quickest.
I think, I'm just watching Marcus coming through those final turns. He also looked suspiciously wide, like all 4 wheels and tyres off the track. Back to Lawrence Van Thor, personal best in the first sector. So a lot of work to do. Carefully, this is the area down here, down at, looks like turn 5.
Well, that's 14, he's at now.
Okay, so they're running wide, and consequently, this is catching the eye of the race director, and as we did see again in Portimao, a lot of drivers suffered from penalties of lap times being deleted because of abuse of track limits. So Lawrence Van Thor in the number 1 car. Ninth. That's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So Dolby quickest of anyone. Winkelhock second in the Audi. Vincent Abril third in the Bentley. Stefan Rakelmi 4th quickest in the Audi. And Mirko Bortolotti 6th quickest in the Lamborghini. So we've got 7 minutes to go. This is all about being in the top 9 to go through to the pole position shootout. Norbert Seidler rather, is down in 11th position in that 333 Rinaldi car. Oh, and there's a spin. Around goes Sergio Jimenez coming out of the final corner. And I think he's just about managed to keep it out of the gravel trap and gets going again. And
but that was
Bueno not happy.
That just sort of suddenly just let go.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it was about to lose it. All of a sudden, bang. Whether the traction control has been, look at the gravel, horrible. Gravel being shredded all over the circuit into turns 1, under braking into turn 1 and turn 2. So that's going to have a bearing in the next 3 or 4 cars coming down into turn 1. They'll find gravel and rubbish on the track, which will have an effect on the entry and speed into turn 1. That
car did end up in the gravel at turn 1 yesterday in free practice as well, yesterday evening. So the race tonight is going to be a night race, so do make sure you join us because it looks really cool here at night. The floodlights all come on and it's a great event to watch, and hopefully the racing will match. Here comes Lawrence Van Thor through the final corner then, currently 9th quickest, and he comes across the line. Can he improve and get up into the sort of top 5? Well, 5th place.
They made him 1 place, he was 6th, he's up to 5th. So that sort of slightly concerning because it's Marcus Winkelhock is the quickest of the Audis right now. Let's look and see. I couldn't really see that he did anything wrong up to this point. The back started to go away. Now whether he got slightly wider, certainly the right rear didn't want to have any load put into it. That's what caused the back of the car to lose adhesion, and once it was gone, it was really a matter of getting it sorted out and back on track.
So Dolby's back in the pits. At the moment, we've only got half a second covering the top 7 cars, which is quite impressive. Frank Stippler's managed to get out onto the track then in that number 4 WRT R8. He hasn't done a great middle sector. First sector was his personal best. Nicky Katzberg's just done the fastest of anyone in the first sector. So keep an eye out for that Lamborghini Gallardo. It's 17th quickest for Stippler. As he comes down into turn 1, he'll be desperate to try and get up into that top 9. But at the moment, he's not there. Here's Nick Katzberg, purple in sector 1. He'll be coming through sector 2 pretty soon. He's got a bit of squabbling traffic up in front of him though, which won't help. It's far enough up the road at the moment, and there's Albert and Hans as well, both looking a little nervous because Katzberg at the moment is down in 16th place. So if this doesn't go well, they could potentially not be going through to the final part of qualifying. Well,
and Katzberg doesn't really want the traffic ahead of him. He's running quicker than they are. He will be affected by the BMW now. Clearly he's had to back out of it. He might as well just stop. And when he's gone through, the BMW's given space.
He has stopped.
But he has stopped. I mean, really, once he saw those cars coming down the back straight or into certainly turn 12, I would have been out of it. To give the tyres a bit of breathing space. He's coming into the pits. Nicky, why are you doing this? You're only just under 4 minutes remaining. I mean, you're going to put on another set of tyres and get out and do a time. As Vincent Abril goes fastest overall in sector 2. Currently still second quickest, this car. But
will that change as he comes through the final corner? Heads in the hands for Albert von Turn and Taxis. But what can Vincent Abril do in the HTP Bentley? Second place in the championship, quickest of anyone, 1 minute 33.876. But this is all about being in the top 9. This isn't for pole position at the moment, but it will be in about 10 minutes time.
Well, it's an indication of where we're going to be with the Bentley and the Nissan currently first and second quickest. And the next car up is Marcus Winkelhock. I mean, he's within 70 thousandths of a second. This car I had thought was going to be much better placed. It currently is 1 slot out of being in the top 9 in 10th place. Personal bests first and second sector. So Marco Seefried has got, let's have a look and see through. Oh dear, it looks a bit messy. But it's on the limit. The car's dancing. I mean, he does a lot of work on the wheel, having to balance the car just in the apex. Can he find a way to get into the top 9?
Across the line, and it's 4th quickest for Norbert Siedler. Great lap from him. Stefan Rakelmi's just done the fastest first sector of anyone as well, so that number 3 WRT Audi is looking good. This is Mirko Bortolotti, who at the moment is down in 13th place because he's been having his lap times deleted, so he'll be desperate to try and get through into that top 9. Through the final corner now comes the Italian. It's looking good for him in the Huracan, the car that's run by the Grata team. Across the line, where's it going to be? 6th quickest, so for the moment that keeps him in there. And there's his teammate watching on. Also watching on was Milos Pavlovic there, wasn't he? So I don't know what Milos is doing here, but nice to see him, former Blancpain racer. And here is Stefan Rakelmi, who's had a reasonable middle sector, but 0.3 slower than the quickest, so this still might put him up a few places. Laurens van Thor, 9th quickest at the moment, and the top 9 go through to the pole position shootout.
Well, all you can say is that he's got a personal best in the first sector, so he needs to maintain at least personal best in the next 2. But Seefried has gone fastest overall sector 3. We've still got Rakelny fastest overall sector 1, so 2 cars that can improve. And in fact, Rakelny's gone up second quickest. First Audi to break that front row provisional position between Bentley and Nissan. And
to give it some perspective, Rakelmi's first sector was 0.3 of a second quicker than Laurens van Thor's. So already Van Thor, having only done 2 sectors, is about 3 or 4 tenths down. Here now comes Norbert Siedler again out of the final corner. Any improvements from him? Yes, quickest of anyone, 1 minute 33.637. So it's Ferrari, Bentley, Audi, Nissan, Audi, the top 5 at the moment. And we've got the top 8 now covered by half a second.
Well, that's the kind of reaction that the promoter of this event wants. He wants to see the Ferrari on the front row of the grid, or maybe a Lamborghini alongside. But look, these two getting held up.
Yeah, that
Bentley
is
being held up by the
Jules Simkowiak.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it's Anders Fjordback who is at the wheel of that Audi. So Simkowiak down in 12th place at the moment, so it doesn't look as though he'll be making any progress, as he will come through now to start his final shot at qualifying to get through into the top 9. Obviously, if you're not in the top 9, then this will decide your grid positions as well, so it is crucial in every way. Nick Katzberg is the other man to watch out for, 17th at the moment, but he is just about to come across the line to start his final flyer. Stefan Rakelmi is looking quick again, purple in sector 1, personal best in sector 2, coming through the final corner. The Monegasque racer comes towards the line, and he's in 4th place and pretty safe at the moment. You can see just making it across the line, I think, was Nick Katzberg.
He made it by about 3 seconds. Stefano Telli keeps an eye on his young charge.
Vanthor 10th.
So Siegfried still quickest in the Ferrari, but there the Bentley is now dropped down to 4th place. Rakelny 2nd, Christopher Mies. Suddenly we're seeing the 2 Audis in the 2nd and 3rd positions.
Vanthor's not on a lap here. He's very, very slow. I don't think Laurens Vanthor will be going through to the 2nd segment of qualifying. We'll have to wait and see, because they combine the Q1 and Q2 times. But at the moment, Vanthor, and here they come out of the final corner, really pushing hard, Laurens Vanthor. What's it going to be good enough for as he comes across the line? 10th position. That is big news in terms of the championship. Norbert Seidler's just jumped up into 2nd place. We'll keep an eye out as well for the 88 car of Nicky Katzberg. He's jumped up to 8th position. So Katzberg may just make it through. As I say, it's the combined times between Q1 and Q2, so we won't know for sure until they announce them. But it's not looking good for Vanthor at the moment. Here comes Simkowiak across the line. Any improvements from him? No, he remains in 15th place. There is Nick Katzberg.
And he can see he's still on a lap. He can still complete this lap at race speed, because he was the last car to cross the line before the checkered flag came out. So he is continuing at race speed to try and make further improvement. Currently 8th at 34.044. I mean, he's not going to get challenged, in my view. There's nobody behind him who's on a lap. So it's only Katzberg now on that final lap. And
he remains in 8th position. So I think that'll mean that they go through to the next session, but Albert von Turnen Taxis is now waiting for the numbers to come up on the screen. It's like your lottery numbers, isn't it? You've got to wait for them to see what'll come up. But it's Christopher Mies who's quickest of anyone, and so very impressive stuff from Christopher Mies. That kind of went under the radar a little bit, but maybe he's not just an Algarve specialist.
No, strong run, 33.602, 35 thousandths quicker than the Ferrari of Marco Siegfried. So good run by Christopher Mies, as you say, maybe not just simply a Portimao specialist. Again, car 9, lap 9 of car 75 cancelled track limits. Lap 9 of car 74 track limits down at turn 6 once again.
So both of the ISR Audis having their lap times cancelled.
At least they're consistent.
Yes, exactly. So here's a look at the results then after Q2. We think it'll be these top 9 that will go through to the pole position shootout, because this was a quicker session than Q1, but we'll wait and check. Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies, the quickest of anyone, ahead of the Ferrari of Norbert Seidler. Then in 3rd place, Stefan Rakelmi. Very impressive lap from him in the Audi. 4th is the Bentley. 5th, the Lamborghini Huracan of Jeroen Mull. So good lap from Jeroen Mull to be up there in 5th position. Last year's Lamborghini Super Trofeo champion. Then Sean Walkinshaw and Craig Dolby 6th quickest. And the big news really from this first page is 12th position for Laurens Vanthor and Robin Freitz. That is not good news at all. Bortolotti may well have just squeaked through, so I think we may have both of the Lamborghini Huracans into the shootout. 3 Lamborghinis we're going to have then in the top 9 with any luck. The 2 ISR Audis had their lap times cancelled, so they only managed 13th and 16th positions, and it looks as though Frank Stippler, he managed to complete 8 laps out there, so he got enough running in, but just didn't have the lap time, and he's half a second off Christophe Bouchou in the Mercedes, so there must be something wrong with that car.
Basically, I suspect the front wheels are not pointing in the direction they're intended to. The consequence of Nicky Meyer-Mellenhoff having that impacted to turn 1 in the first of the 3 qualifying sections. So Frank Stippler, once again, who's been nothing to do with him. He just gets in, does his job, but has to deal with the consequences of the contact.
So these are the cars then. There is Laurens Vanthor out the back, and he will not be going through to the pole position shootout. Christopher Mies in the 2 Audi, the 333 car of Norbert Seidler, Stefan Rakelmi in car 3, 84 Bentley there of Vincent Abril, Jeroen Mull in the 19 car, and then we'll have Craig Dolby, Marcus Winkelhock, and the screens have just gone off, so who else was it? Oh, there we go, it's come back now. And Nick Katzberg and Mirko Bortolotti. So those are the 9 cars that are going to be battling it out for pole position. But that's, you know, I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but that's not the way you want your... And on a weekend, you could win the title. You don't want to qualify 12th.
You know, it's a long way till the end of the event. We've got a race tonight, we've got a race tomorrow. Lots can happen, but you would like to start at the front because that takes away most of the danger. Starting in the middle of a field is always prone to, particularly in turn 1 and 2. I mean, the entry to turn 1 is quite wide, it narrows at the apex, so it will invite people to try and go the long way around. But of course then you'll have the 2 cars, one on the inside, one on the outside, looking for the same bit of tarmac to go into turn 2. It's not the best place to start.
No, absolutely. So there's Marcus Winkelhock just having some conversation. And Rob Jansen has guessed on Twitter that the camera's in the middle of the car near the badge. That's his prediction. So thank you for that, Rob. And we will let you know soon. We'll let you know in the qualifying race exactly where the camera is positioned. But thanks for getting in touch. Glad you're watching. Hope you're enjoying. And there's the 173 car of Craig Dolby, who he's underrated. I think Craig Dolby. He's not seen as, you know, one of Britain's best GT drivers, but he is. I mean, it's not just a matter of being a GT driver. I mean, he was a young guy. Oh yeah. I mean, up to 3 years ago, had a very promising career in single-seater racing. Then he spent the last 3 years really unemployed, and then the opportunity to take part in this team with Sean Walkinshaw, he has seized, and you know, that's the experience he's bringing to the team. Sean has come from single-seaters and hasn't got quite the experience of Craig, so one is being a tutor to the other, and I think both are learning from one another, and particularly now they've moved forward with this new engineering package they have. Confidence ultimately is the key. So if both drivers are driving with confidence, you're going to get good results. So the contact between cars 4 and 6, no further action will be taken in that incident with Nicky Mermanov and James Nash down at turn 1. Really? Yep. Disagree? I mean, I think the trouble is, one could argue that as a consequence of the contact, that that car, the number 4 car, didn't get a fair run in the end of the Q1 or in Q2, and consequently has been knocked out of Q3. So is it fair for a driver in the number 6 car to not receive some kind of penalty? I mean, I think the issue about penalties is if there is no loser or winner, then that's one thing, but where somebody clearly has been a loser, such as the number 4 Audi, I'm sort of sympathetic to that car, but you can't give the number 4 car an artificial time. All you can do is, what kind of penalty can you give the number 6 car? I don't know. That's
it's always
true,
it's just an argument that'll go on as long as the day's long, and it happens all the time. So the perpetrator sometimes gets away with it, and the innocent party is the one that's injured.
Well, the conversation will have to remain for another day now, because the final segment of qualifying is underway here in Misano. In the next 10 minutes we'll know who's going to be starting the penultimate round of the 2015 Blancpain Sprint Series from pole position, and it's not going to be the championship leaders. The number 1 car of Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freins eliminated in Q2. There's Christopher Mies heading out onto the circuit now, and he is the man who secured pole position last time out in Algarve. Then we've got the Nissan going out there too. And then we'll have the 2 Lamborghini Huracans, the Ferrari, the Marcus Winkelhock Audi, and, well, we were just talking about that 6 Audi, but it's worth pointing out that they did a great job in Algarve last time out, because they ended up finishing in 2nd place, which was their best ever result in a main race. They'd had a couple of seconds in qualifying races, but never a 2nd place in a main race. So Mermanov and Winkelhock were over the moon with that.
Teams may have been able to save a set of tyres from the lack of dry running on Friday, albeit that they wouldn't have used fresh rubber on Friday, but nevertheless, the best of their rest would have been what they might have used in that first session of practice, just to get a feel for the car on the dry track. This is the first time today that the cars have run on a fully dry track, so it's a big change from any thoughts of Friday, what that offered up in terms of information and then just basic feel of what a car is doing.
There is Nicky Melnoff, looking cool, and it's Marcus Winkelhock who is going to be the man to attempt to set a quick lap time in that Audi. But there's the other Audi of Christopher Mies then, heading down towards turn 1 here at Misano. You can still see all the gravel that was shed by Sergio Jimenez. But here now is Mies through 2, now into 3.
And it's just through that sequence of 1, 2 and 3 that at the start, hate to say it, but please, try and contain your enthusiasm, because it's just made for contact.
So 24.5 in the first sector, and that's a pretty good first sector actually. First lap out for Christopher Mies. Quickest time we've seen so far is a 1 minute 33.602, which was set by Christopher Mies. So he's the benchmark really at the moment. Quick all year, Christopher Mies, but really coming into his own in these last couple of months and starting to sort of show, your Laurens Vanthoors how it's done at the moment.
So on to the quickest part of the circuit. And the Audi, not the quickest of the cars, quick in the lap, which is the key to qualifying. And if you can maintain your position off the line and get clear in that opening lap, then you can sustain it. But if you're having to make your way back up through the field and you get caught behind a quick car in a straight line, then we've seen the story all through the year where Audi have had to fight and battle to get ahead of a quicker car in a straight line. But Christopher Mies showing purple all the way around. We've got Vincent Abril now showing fastest in first sector. Nicky Katzberg's fastest in the second sector. Christopher Mies comes across the line, and it is a 33.7.
Very quick lap time from Christopher Mies then to start us out going just a tenth of a second down. We're on board here though with Craig Dolby, who's quicker than Mies in the middle sector. Dolby's first sector is pretty, it's about 3 tenths down actually, so he's a couple of tenths down on Christopher Mies as he comes towards the final sector. Vincent Abril's done the fastest first sector of anyone. Katzberg goes second quickest, but he's half a second down on Mies. So here comes Dolby into the final corner in that always evolving Motorsport Nissan.
Good exit, didn't overrun, didn't run wide, didn't put all 4 wheels off the track. Third quickest on 33.7. I mean, there's a tenth and a bit second between first and third. Very, very close. Riquelme, Mies, Dolby. Now we're looking at the Bentley. Purple.
Absolutely. Can he do the purple hat-trick as he comes towards the final corner now? Vincent Abril turns it in, heads towards the line, neat and tidy on the exit. Across the line comes the HTP Bentley, and it's quickest, 1 minute 33.2. 4 tenths of a second quicker than anyone else, but Stefan Riquelme has now set the fastest first sector of anyone. Across the line comes Mirko Bortolotti, 5th quickest for the Italian. So it's Abril, Riquelme, Mies, Dolby, Bortolotti and Katzberg now. And so I guess Riquelme is going to be the man to watch. Here he is. And he's really started to improve in the recent months as well. As he heads down the back straight, we will get his middle sector time in a couple of moments. There you can see the Bentley's comparison on the left. He's just slightly slower than the Bentley, and the Bentley's done the fastest first sector of anyone now.
Yeah, remember this is the bit of the track where the Audi is not at its greatest strength. It's going to be here, back to the start-finish line, so middle sector fractionally down when it comes to it, now dragging down the quickest part of the racetrack. So Riquelme again looking, be careful not to put all 4 wheels off, because that will have a deletion of your lap time. It's the exit out of final turn 16, and that's within acceptable limits. So what can this Audi do? It's going to be fastest. It is 33.112.
Very good lap time then from Stefan Riquelme. Dolby jumps up to 3rd quickest now, but Vincent Abril is still looking quick. He's pretty much neck and neck with Riquelme's time so far. Here's the 333 Ferrari of Norbert Siedler. He goes 4th quickest. So it's Riquelme, Abril, Dolby, Siedler, Mies, Bortolotti, Mull, Katzberg, the 8 cars at the moment. But keep an eye out for Vincent Abril, who's going to be coming across the line any moment now, and he does improve. No, he doesn't. He's fractionally slower, and he remains in 2nd place. Here's Marcus Winkelhock.
Personal best, 1st and 2nd sectors. So Marcus Winkelhock ought to see an improvement. Maybe getting into the top 6 with this time. I mean, he is the go-to, the de facto guy, I think, in the Audi team, sharing with Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff, who shows flashes and flashes of brilliance at the same time as he comes across start-finish line, and there he goes. He goes 5th quickest.
5th then for him, but Vincent Abril's just done the fastest first sector of anyone again. Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff watching on there. And Seidler's done a reasonable sector 1, but this is the man to ride with, Vincent Abril on the brakes. This is into turns 9 and 10.
Yep, so it's going to be where the Bentley can stretch its long legs, runs right in, but those are 4 wheels off. So again, it'll be observed whether there is any penalty given. Absolutely flat out.
He's over a 1/10 of a second up.
So flat out all the way down into turn 12, and then all of a sudden you exit and you're straight into 13. And how do you keep the car balanced and on the brakes, turning the steering wheel and off the throttle all at one time?
Dolby goes quickest of anyone, 1 minute 33.0. So Craig Dolby in the always evolving motorsport Nissan is the quickest man at the moment, but through the final corner comes Vincent Abril. Are we going to see an improvement from the Bentley? Neat and tidy through the final corner. Across the line he comes, and it remains 3rd quickest. So he manages to improve, but stays in 3rd place. So Dolby in the Nissan quickest, Raquelme in the Audi 2nd, Abril in the Bentley in 3rd place at the moment. Then Seidler, Katzberg, Mies, Winkelhock, Bortolotti and Mull, the top 9 runners. Here is Christopher Mies.
So Mies is down currently in 6th place, but he's got a personal improvement in sector 1, nothing in 2, and he's backed out of it. So he's decided, so it's Craig Dolby who's got what, 32 thousandths of a second advantage over the number 3 Audi of Stefan Raquelme, who's, as you pointed out, seemingly at the back end of the season, finally coming to terms and grips. And Dolby, with the lights flashing, he thinks he's got more time remaining in this Nissan, wants to stretch the advantage. Maybe he'd like to get into a 32. That would really psychologically really put the frighteners on everybody else here this weekend.
He's not going to do it on this lap though, I don't think, because he is 0.6 of a second down in the first 2 sectors. So maybe one more lap for Dolby to try and consolidate that provisional pole position. The top 3 on the grid at the moment, separated by 0.036 of a second. So fantastically close up at the front. Then you've got the likes of Seidler and Katzberg and Mies and Winkelhock still to do their final run. There is Sean Walkinshaw on the right-hand side as they wait and hope for a pole position. Raquelme's come into the pits, so that's the end of Raquelme's challenge in the number 3 WRT Audi. This, meanwhile, is Jeroen Mul, the Dutchman, as he gets on the brakes. And meanwhile, Mirko Bortolotti, his teammate, is coming towards the final corner. Good first sector from Bortolotti. Middle sector isn't quite up there with the quickest as we go on board with him across the line. Where's this going to put the Huracan? I think he remains in 8th place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly disappointed. I thought the 2 Lamborghinis would have been nearer to the front of a grid, which on effect was there, along with Monza, a home race. But back to number 2, Christopher Mies, currently on the 3rd row of the grid in 6th place. Personal best 1st and 2nd, so opportunity for improvement. Certainly if he can get this onto the 2nd row of the grid, I think Christopher Mies would feel that he's done a good job. He's got to beat the Ferrari, and maybe the Bentley in 3rd place doesn't. Stays 5th, 3rd row of the grid.
So let's keep an eye out for Norbert Seidler now then. He's less than a 1/10 of a second down on Craig Dolby in sector 1. So what will we get in sector 2? He's got to hit 1 minute .407, and look at that, he's 0.4 of a second up after the middle sector. What an opportunity this is for the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari to take their first pole position of the season. It's going to be him or Dolby, isn't it? It's going to be Ferrari or Nissan for pole position. Christopher Mies is still out there, but I don't think he's going to quite have enough because his first split isn't good enough. Through the final corner comes Norbert Seidler. Craig Dolby's in the pits. The run is over from the Nissan. Will it hold on to provisional pole position? Across the line comes Seidler, and it's quickest. 1 minute 32.774. 0.3 of a second quicker than anyone else. Wow, to the final corner comes Vincent Abril. He is not going to improve that time through. He's going to remain down in 4th place. Only Christopher Mies is still out there on a lap time. He's done a personal best in the 1st and 2nd sectors, but he's not going to challenge for pole position here. He could get himself up into the top 5, but that's about it. Raquelme's backed off. He's not on a lap. It's the number 2 car. Here he is of Christopher Mies, who is pushing hard. I don't think he's got enough to get pole.
He needs to get into the top 4, really. to have any chance of doing something serious when this race goes dark later on this evening. But what a great run by Marco Seefried. I mean, a promoter's joy to have a Ferrari on pole position for an evening race. You can almost hear the thundering hooves of the Italian fans making their way to Misano Adriatico or down the motorway from Bologna, Milano, wherever. Oh, it's wonderful to be in Italy, isn't it?
Fifth place then at the end for Christopher Mies, and that brings the session to a conclusion. Ferrari on pole in Italy in the Blancpain Sprint Series, their first ever pole position in the Blancpain Sprint, and there is Marco Seefried. Reserved thumbs up from him, but what a great lap that was. He was slightly down in the first sector, Norbert Siedler. The final sector as well, he was slower than Dolby by a tenth of a second, but that middle sector, absolutely fantastic. Got him 0.4 of a second up in that middle sector.
Well, this car has been the consistently quickest car through that middle sector, principally because of its 224 km/h speed, and they just got it right as he made his way onto the straight on the exit of turn 10, got the drive done, got the momentum, carried that little bit of extra speed, and that's where the difference lay. He did personal best first and third sector, consolidating that great middle sector. The middle sector, in fairness, had not so much to do with the driving as just simply the straight line performance of the Ferrari.
So Norbert Siedler making his way very slowly back to the pit lane, and he is no doubt enjoying his return. Fantastic to see that car starting on pole position tomorrow, and they've been sort of the nearly men all season.
What about tonight?
Yes, no, we'll see it tonight as well. I'm
Pole
preempting
position
tomorrow, yeah, exactly. So yeah, the race coming up later on today. Pole position here in Italy for the Ferrari. The Rinaldi Racing squad of Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler are going to be starting on pole position. Sean Walkinshaw and Craig Dolby alongside them on the front row, and we know what that Nissan's like off the start, so keep an eye on that one. It'll be the second driver in this list that will be starting the race today. So Dolby, if he can repeat the performance of Nürburgring, could be in a good position come turn one, but there's an awful long way to go after that. Ortelli and Raquelmi will start in third on the grid. Vincent Abril, fourth on the grid for them in their championship battle. I think they'll be satisfied to be fourth with the number one car down in 12th place. Mies in fifth, Katzberg sixth, Winkelhock seventh, Bortolotti and Jeroen Mull completing our runners. The Lamborghini Hurricanes couldn't quite get up to speed. Here's a look at the highlights then. When Q1 got underway, it was a bit sunnier than it is now. The clouds have come over a little here in Italy. We're on the Adriatic coast, and the 84 car of Max Buch was the man who was quickest in the first qualifying session. Did a 1 minute 34.321, which was the time to beat at the time. Stefan Ortelli was pushing hard, but ultimately the first session of qualifying was notable only really for this, as Nicky Meyer-Melnov tried to pass James Nash. That hit James Nash, and as a result they picked up damage and will be starting down in 17th position on the grid. Not the start they would have wanted, especially considering the pace James Nash had in the opening stages of that Q1. The Lamborghini Hurricanes managed to get through to the pole position shootout for the final, for their first time in the Blancpain Sprint Series. Nick Katzberg left it very, very late. He got caught out by traffic, and that was frustration, but he managed to get through in the end and will start the race from 6th position on the grid. A moment for Sergio Jimenez. He lost the rear of the car coming through the final corner, and that was a shame for him. Julstim Kowiak lost time as well as he tried to put a lap on the Fjordback brothers. Then it was all about Q3, a superb battle for pole position. It looked as though the Nissan had it, but it didn't. The final lap of the session, Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried will start on pole position. Make sure you join us later on tonight, 8:30 local time will be the qualifying race under the floodlights. It's going to be really cool. See you then.